At the family party, I dropped a glass, just a clumsy moment. But my cousin didn't hesitate. She stood up, voice sharp, and declared to everyone, "Pack your bags, this family has no room for you." I'm Emma, and that moment shattered something inside me. The resort in Miami was alive with guests, mingling under string lights, the ocean waves crashing nearby, but the room went dead silent. My cousin, Stephanie, always the polished one who thrived on approval, smirked as she said it, like she'd been waiting for an excuse to push me out. My father glanced over, his expression stern as usual. The man who built our hotel empire on ruthless decisions, not saying a word but clearly siding with her. The betrayal stung deep, bringing back flashes of being the odd one out in our high-pressure family. I didn't yell or cry. I just grabbed my keys and left, the humid air sticking to my skin as I crossed the parking lot to my car. Driving home along the palm-lined roads, hands steady on the wheel despite the rage building, I realized this was it. I had nothing left to lose. It wasn't just the spill, it was years of feeling like an outsider in my own life. If you've ever been blindsided by family like that, give this a like, subscribe for more honest stories of breaking free, and comment, how would you handle a cousin dropping a bomb like that on you? The drive back to my apartment in Miami was heavy, the humid night air thick through the open window. I'm Emma, 24, and I've spent years trying to carve a place in a family that never wanted me. My father, Michael Carter, built Carter Hotels into a Florida empire, a man who commands boardrooms and dinner tables with the same iron grip. After Mom died in a car crash when I was 11, rushing to one of his resort openings, the house turned colder than the ocean in January. He poured everything into Stephanie, my cousin, who moved in at 15 after her parents' plane went down. She's 28 now, all sharp edges and ambition, always chasing Michael's approval like it's oxygen. Me, I was the spare, the one who didn't fit his vision of glossy perfection. It started early. My 13th birthday was supposed to be a small party at our South Beach resort. Instead, it became a networking event for Michael's investors. I sat by the pool, ignored as Stephanie smoozed with guests, already his protege. "Emma, smile more," she said, handing me a resort-branded keychain instead of a real gift. Michael didn't even notice me. Later, he pulled me aside. "Stephanie's learning the business. What are you doing with your life?" That cut deep, but I swallowed it. I tried harder, straight A's, debate team captain, but it was never enough. When I picked a college major in education over hospitality, Michael sneered. "Nonprofits? That's for people who can't cut it in the real world." Stephanie backed him, her voice sugary but sharp. "You could at least try front desk, Emma. It's not hard." Years of that piled up. At a Thanksgiving dinner in our Key Biscayne mansion, I suggested cutting waste at the resorts, like plastic straws. Michael laughed. "Stick to your books." Stephanie chimed in, "We don't need green ideas slowing profits." She had flashed that perfect smile, but her eyes were cold, like I was a problem to manage. I learned to stay quiet, to shrink at those glitzy events. But that night at the party, dropping the glass wasn't just a slip. It was me daring to exist in their space. Stephanie's words, that smirk, they lit a fuse I didn't know I had. Pulling into my parking lot, I tossed my keys on the counter and checked my phone. 31 missed calls. Michael's number mostly, a few from Stephanie. No texts checking on me, just voicemails. Michael's voice was clipped. "Emma, you made a mess tonight. Fix it. Call me." Stephanie's was smoother, fake concern. "Hey, let's talk this out, okay? Don't blow it up." I deleted them, my hands shaking with anger, but also something new, clarity. This wasn't about fixing a glass, it was about control. I kicked off my sandals, the tile cool underfoot, and spotted my old high school journal on a shelf, buried under cookbooks. Blue cover, edges frayed. I hadn't opened it in years. The pages were a gut punch. Entry from 16. Dad said my speech at the resort fundraiser was embarrassing. Stephanie told everyone I choked. Another, senior year, suggested better staff hours at family meeting. Dad said I'm naive. Stephanie rolled her eyes. Every line was proof, a pattern of being dismissed, belittled. I grabbed a pen and wrote, "Tonight, party at resort." Dropped glass. Stephanie said no room for me. Seeing it in ink made it real. I wasn't crazy. They'd built a system to keep me down. But now I felt a shift. I wasn't just surviving anymore. Morning came, sun slicing through my blinds. My phone showed more calls, 40 now. Michael's email, "Meet at the office today. We settle this quietly." Stephanie texted, "Don't be dramatic, Emma. It's family." I ignored them. Instead, I thought of Linda, Michael's younger sister, 55, who walked away from Carter Hotels a decade ago. She'd been head of PR, vibrant and blunt, until she clashed with Michael over shady vendor deals. He wanted flash over ethics, she told me once, her red hair bouncing as she laughed it off. Now she ran a kids' charity in Coral Gables, living simply in a condo full of art and plants. She was the only one who'd ever stood up to him. I grabbed my bag and drove over, the palm trees blurring past. Linda opened the door, her eyes warm but sharp. "Emma, what's going on?" Her place smelled of coffee and lavender, a world away from resort polish. I spilled it all, the party, Stephanie's words, the years of being erased. She listened, sipping tea, her face calm but knowing. Sounds like Michael's playbook. He humiliated me at a staff meeting once, called me a dreamer for wanting fair contracts. She pulled a box from under her couch, old files, emails from her hotel days. "Look here, orders to hide budget cuts from investors." We started sorting. My journal entries matched her records. A family dinner where Michael bragged about profits tied to a sketchy offshore transfer. "He's been dodging taxes," Linda said. "We can prove it." We worked past lunch, building a timeline. My notes, Dad ignored my college acceptance at Resort Gala, toasted Stephanie's deal instead. Linda's files, that deal involved unreported fees. She showed me how to pull public hotel permits online. One showed safety violations at our Coconut Grove property, corners cut to save cash. "This is bigger than you," she said, "but it starts with you." We saved everything to an encrypted drive. My phone buzzed. Michael again. "Meeting tomorrow. Be there." I didn't reply. Linda cooked pasta and we ate, planning. "He'll fight dirty," she warned, "but we're smarter." For the first time, I felt like I had a real ally. The next day, I added more journal entries. "A resort opening at 19. Michael snapped when I asked about staff benefits. "Focus on your role, Emma." Stephanie pulled me aside. "Don't mess with his mood." Now, that linked to a lawsuit he buried, workers' unpaid overtime. Linda found the court record. Patterns clear. Calls hit 56. Stephanie's voicemail? "Emma, you're stressing Dad out. Let's meet, just us." Her tone was softer, but I knew better. Control, not care. I drove to Linda's again. She had vendor contracts showing underpayments. Public records will back this up. We cross-checked dates, my memories sharpening. A holiday party, Michael called me a liability. Stephanie laughed. Tied to a tax evasion audit he dodged. We kept building. Linda's friend, a former accountant, sent anonymized tips. Carter Hotels fudged numbers for years. My nonprofit work helped. I knew how to organize stories for impact. But fear crept in. What if they bury us? Linda's eyes gleamed. "They're scared too. Keep going." We backed up files on 2 drives, one hidden in my apartment. Michael's texts turned sharp. "Last chance, Emma. Don't test me." Stephanie tried guilt. "You're hurting the family name." I didn't budge. The journal grew. Every slight, every proof. I wasn't shrinking anymore. I was ready to fight. We dove right into it the next morning at Linda's condo, her table cluttered with coffee mugs and stacks of papers. Linda, with her no-nonsense energy, she's the type who cuts through bullshit with a single raised eyebrow, handed me a fresh notebook. "Let's map this out properly," she said, her voice steady like someone who's fought these battles before. Michael, my father, is 60, a self-made tycoon who started Carter Hotels with one rundown motel and turned it into a coastal empire through sheer will and questionable shortcuts. He's charming in public, but at home he's a control freak, always calculating risks. Stephanie's his mirror, 28, driven, the kind who networks at brunch and posts motivational quotes on LinkedIn. But underneath, she's insecure, clinging to his validation like it's her lifeline. The timeline began with my journal entries. I read one aloud from age 17. Dad shut me down at the hotel expansion meeting, called my ideas stupid. Linda nodded, cross-referencing it with a public permit filing she pulled up on her laptop. That expansion in Fort Lauderdale, he bypassed environmental checks to save time. Fines paid quietly. Her charity work made her meticulous. She'd spent years advocating for fair labor, which is why she left the company after Michael ignored her pleas for better employee conditions. He said ethics don't pay bills, she recalled, her tone bitter but resolved. We linked more. A Christmas gala entry where Michael ignored my input on sustainability. Stephanie backed him, said I was being dramatic. Linda found corresponding financials, overinflated invoices to hide costs. "This is fraud 101, she muttered. My phone vibrated constantly. Calls hit 62. Michael's voicemail was gruff. "Emma, enough games. Get to the office." Stephanie's text, "This isn't you. Let's grab coffee and sort it." Her words sounded genuine, but I knew her. She's the mediator who always sides with power. I replied once, "Coffee won't fix this." No response. Linda glanced over. "Ignore them. Focus." We added screenshots of those messages to the file, timestamped. She showed me how to use free tools like county databases for hotel records. One popped up, a safety violation at our Palm Beach property. Workers complained about faulty wiring. Michael settled out of court. I remembered that year. He yelled at me for sympathizing with staff during a site visit. "They're replaceable, Emma." Stephanie had pulled me away. "Don't rock the boat." As we worked, I opened up more about my nonprofit job. I help kids plan futures they choose, not what's forced on them. Linda smiled. "That's why you're strong. You've seen the other side." She's passionate about kids, too. Her charity focuses on after-school programs for low-income families, a direct rebellion against Michael's profit-first mentality. We broke for lunch, her making sandwiches with fresh tomatoes from her garden. "He tried to buy me out when I left," she confided, "offered cash to stay silent about the vendor scams." That fueled me. We dug into old emails she'd saved, Michael instructing her to bury negative reviews. Reputation management, he called it. Linked to my journal. A birthday where he gifted Stephanie shares, me nothing. "Earn it," he said. "Stephanie, you'll get there, Em." But her tone was patronizing. Threats ramped up. A certified letter from Michael's lawyer. "Cease communications with third parties. Enclosed NDA for your consideration." The document offered a payout, $50,000 for silence. I showed Linda. "Typical," she scoffed. "Sign and vanish." We scanned it, added to the timeline. Stephanie called. I answered. "Emma, come on, Dad's freaking out. That letter's to protect us all." Her voice cracked a bit, like she was torn, but I knew her loyalty lay with the Empire. "Protect you, maybe, not me." "Your family," she pleaded. "Act like it." I hung up. "She's scared of losing her spot," Linda said. Michael pits us against each other. We pushed on. Linda contacted a former colleague anonymously, an accountant who'd quit over ethics. He can verify the offshore stuff. The guy emailed back, "Yeah, transfers to Cayman accounts after big deals." I flagged it, got ignored. We anonymized his statement, added it. My workday was a blur, helping a teen with a scholarship app, but my mind on the file. "Yo, okay?" my boss asked. She's supportive, a mom figure who knows family drama. "Yeah, just stuff." Back at Linda's, we built charts, simple visuals linking personal slights to business wrongs. 1. Michael's dismissal of my eco ideas at a board dinner, tied to wetland violations for a new resort. Fines, $200,000 buried in reports. Nerves built. "What if they hack us?" I asked. Linda, ever practical, set up two-factor on our accounts. We're careful. Calls reached 80. Michael's email. "Family meeting tomorrow. Mandatory. Stephanie, please, Em." For old time's sake. I recalled old times. Her covering for Michael's temper, like when he berated me for a low grade. "She's always enabled him," I told Linda. She agreed. But she's trapped too. Doesn't excuse it. We refined the file. Over 300 pages now. I added a recent memory, last month's investor lunch. Michael praised Stephanie's marketing win, ignored my promotion. That's when the glass drop felt inevitable, I said. The meeting summons came, lawyer's office downtown. Go, Linda urged, but record if legal. In Florida, it's one-party consent. I prepared summaries. The drive was tense, traffic on I-95 slow. The office was modern, views of the bay. Michael sat at the head, 60 but looking older, stress lines deep. Stephanie beside him, fidgeting with her necklace, a habit when nervous. Sit, Michael said, voice low. Let's talk sense. I took a chair. Sense? Like humiliating me publicly? Stephanie leaned in. It was heat of the moment. I didn't mean it like that. Her eyes darted to Michael, seeking approval. He waved it off. You caused the scene. Sign this NDA, take the money, $75,000 now, and we move on. The document was thicker, clauses barring any discussion. I pushed back. Money won't erase the control, the dismissals. Michael sighed. You're too sensitive. Always have been, like your aunt. Stephanie tried. Emma, think about the hotels. This hurts the team. The team that never included me? I pulled summaries. What about these? Offshore hiding? Safety cuts? Michael's face hardened. Where'd you get that? Linda? Stephanie gasped. That's private. Public records, I said. I'm not signing. I'm done. Michael stood. You'll regret this. We'll prove you're unstable. Your therapy after the accident. I met his eyes. Try. It'll backfire. Stephanie reached out. Please, let's fix this as family. But her voice wavered, like she knew it was broken. I left, adrenaline pumping. Back with Linda, I replayed it. They threatened lawsuits. She listened, then hugged me. You held strong. We called Kimberly, my college buddy, 25, a social media whiz with a startup vibe, always buzzing with ideas but cautious about risks. Emma? Been ages. Her voice energetic over the phone. Need your expertise on something big. I explained the family mess, the file. Can you help go viral safely? Kimberly paused. Whoa, that's heavy. But yeah, if the proof's solid. Meet tomorrow? We did, at a quiet cafe in Little Havana. Kimberly, with her curly hair and laptop stickers, reviewed the docs. This is gold, but dangerous. We need realism. Start with a Twitter thread for credibility, Instagram Reels for emotional pull. Use Canva for graphics, anonymize sources. She outlined. Thread structure. Hook with your party story, then evidence drops. Hashtags like hashtag family accountability, hashtag corporate callout. Time posts for peak hours. Use alt accounts to test engagement. Verify facts with links, avoid misinformation flags. Linda joined via Zoom, her practical side shining. Keep it factual, no embellishments. Kimberly nodded. We'll A/B test drafts, see what resonates. Risks, backlash bots from competitors or Michael's PR. Use VPNs. We drafted, first post, the night my cousin told me to pack my bags and why I'm speaking now. Attached blurred journal scans. Kimberly, this could hit 10,000 views easy if shared right. We scheduled tests. Her excitement contagious. You're brave, Emma. The prep consumed us. Kimberly ran mock campaigns on dummy profiles, tracking likes, shares. Thread format works best. Narrative pulls people in. Linda added witness statements. A ex-employee emailed, confirming the wage theft. Use my anon quote. We integrated it. Michael's threats continued. A cease and desist letter. Ignore, Linda said. It's bluff. Stephanie texted. Saw the lawyer. You're scaring me. Talk? Her vulnerability showed, but too late. I blocked her. Kimberly warned, expect trolls, moderate comments. We refined reels, short clips with text overlays, voice over my story. Realism, cite sources like BBB complaints on hotels. As the gala neared, the file was ironclad. Kimberly, launch plan set. You ready? I was. The fight was on. The Investor Gala kicked off that Saturday at our Miami Beach resort, the kind of event Michael loved, glamorous with live jazz and ocean views drawing big names. Kimberly had the launch timed perfectly. She's 25, a freelance social media strategist with a quirky, tech-savvy personality, always juggling multiple phones, cracking jokes about algorithms, but dead serious about ethics in online spaces. "We'll drop the thread at 8:15 during his toast," she said, her energy infectious as we finalized over video call. Linda chimed in, her practical side picking in. "Keep it factual, no drama for drama's sake." The thread was crafted realistic, started with a simple Twitter post from an Anon account. "I've stayed silent too long about family and business wrongs," thread 115. Followed by my narrative. "It started at a family party when my cousin told me to pack my bags." But it's deeper. Years of mistreatment tied to shady deals. We included links to public docs, redacted for safety, using Google Drive shares with view-only access. Instagram Reels added short clips, text overlays on stock footage of beaches, voice over my story in a disguised tone. Hashtags like #HoldAccountable, #HotelTruth, chosen after Kimberly analyzed trends. These get traction without being spammy, she explained. "Will boost with organic shares from my network, friends and marketing who owe me favors." I skipped the gala, watching the live stream from my couch. Michael stepped on stage, his 60-year-old frame still commanding, but tension in his shoulders showed. Carter Hotels, innovating luxury for the future. Stephanie stood offside, her usual confidence cracked. She fidgeted with her earrings, a tell when things unraveled. At 8:15, Kimberly texted, "Live." The thread posted. First responses, "Whoa, this is intense." Shares climbed, 10, then hundreds. On the stream, phones lit up. A guest murmured, "Check Twitter." Michael's toast faltered. "As we build, partnerships," his assistant whispered urgently. Stephanie scrolled her phone, face paling. Comments flooded. "Is this about Carter? Proof looks legit." Kimberly monitored. 20,000 views already. Reddit's picking it up. We had prepped for realism. Fact-check links to BBB complaints on hotels, anonymized employee quotes. No hype, just evidence. Fallout was swift. By 9, major accounts retweeted. A travel influencer, if true, boycotting Carter. Sponsors messaged polls. Michael's speech ended early. The stream switched to music. Leaked clips showed him off stage. Who leaked this crap? "Stephanie, Dad, it's Emma." I knew she was talking to Linda. Her voice shook, revealing her fear of losing the empire she'd built her identity on. News sites grabbed it overnight. Hotel chain CEO accused of fraud, family strife. IRS flagged the offshore mentions. Tips poured in. Kimberly, viral loop activated. People sharing personal stories now. She moderated comments on our posts, deleting trolls, keeps it clean, avoids flags. I packed that week, moving to a cozy condo in Wynwood. Street art walls, vibrant but grounded, a far cry from resort opulence. Kimberly helped with boxes, her bubbly side showing. "This place suits you, creative, free." Linda brought plants. "New roots," she said, her warm pragmatism shining through. "Proud of you for standing tall." Work at the nonprofit felt renewed. My boss, a compassionate mentor in her 40s, noticed, "You seem lighter." I led a session for teens. Own your story. One kid shared family pressure. I listened, drawing from mine without oversharing. Michael's empire crumbled. Board resignations hit email inboxes. A partner chain severed ties. Ethics matter. Stocks dipped 15%. He issued a PR statement. Personal disputes exaggerated, focusing on core values. No apology. Stephanie posted on LinkedIn, "Navigating challenges with resilience." Comments roasted it. "What about the fraud?" She messaged me, "Em, you win." Happy now? The hotels are tanking. Her tone bitter, the ambitious facade cracking. I didn't respond. Blocked. Complete cutoff. No more ties, no inheritance guilt. Linda, you did what I couldn't fully. Expose it all. Her charity benefited. Donations spiked from the buzz. Kimberly updated metrics. Over 500,000 engagements. AMA requests coming. We did a follow-up reel. Thanks for support. If you've got stories, DM safely. Realism kept it grounded. Verified user submissions. No unvetted claims. Therapy helped me process. My counselor, empathetic but direct, you reclaimed control. Sessions unpacked Mom's loss, Michael's neglect. He projected his failures on you. I journaled positives now, built my life, volunteered more, teaching digital safety at Linda's charity events. Social media can empower or destroy. Use wisely, I said, nodding to Kimberly's lessons. Life stabilized. Mornings running in Bayfront Park, afternoons at work inspiring kids, evenings with new friends, Kimberly's crowd, creative types. No family shadows. A year later, Carter Hotels sold assets. Michael retired quietly. Stephanie started a small consultancy, her posts less flashy. I didn't follow. Focused on growth. Promoted to program director, salary letting me travel to Orlando for fun. Linda hosted barbecues. Kimberly brought tech gadgets. To new chapters, we toasted. The real value? This story shows family bonds can be toxic, but breaking free built strength. I learned to prioritize self-worth over approval, to document wrongs early, seek true allies like Linda and Kimberly. If you're trapped, no. Silence serves them. Gather evidence. Speak out. Social media's powerful, but use it smart with facts and support. It saved me. Thanks for hearing my journey. If it hits home, like, subscribe for more tales of turning pain into power, and comment your thoughts. What's one step you'd take to claim your voice?
Sleeping beside my ear. My ribs were cracked. My legs were in traction. My face was half bandaged and dry from blood. I was in the ICU alone. The nurse told me I had survived a high-speed collision. A hit from the side. Glass had gone through my shoulder. I'd lost a lot of blood, but I was lucky to be alive. She said I'd been unconscious for almost 19 hours. Then she said something else, gently. Your family was here, but they left early. They left. I blinked through tears, pain searing down my spine. The door was already closing. The next day, a different doctor came in with a clipboard. He looked concerned. Your father signed your release forms this morning. We tried to explain it was against medical advice, but he insisted. My voice cracked. I'm not ready to leave. I know, he replied, quiet and ashamed. But we can't stop him. He's your legal guardian. He said your family couldn't afford another day in this ward. I was still bleeding, still on oxygen, still dizzy every time I moved. But by that afternoon, I was discharged, dragged out in a wheelchair with my 4 pulled early and my stitches still fresh. They didn't even bring clothes, just handed me my phone, a crumpled hoodie, and a cab number. No one came to get me. I lay on the couch for the next 3 days, feverish, weak, alone. Every time I moved, I saw black spots. Then, on the 4th day, I opened Instagram. My jaw clenched. They were on vacation, matching outfits, sun hats, my little brother holding a smoothie in front of a resort pool, my mom posing with wine by the ocean, my dad grinning like nothing had happened. The caption said, much needed family getaway after a long week. Grateful for health, sun, and peace. Health? Peace? I lay on the couch, still unable to walk. My wounds had barely scabbed. My hospital bracelet was still on, and they were clinking glasses in a villa. That was the moment something shifted in me, something small but permanent. I stopped crying. I stopped waiting. I picked up my phone and made a call. By the time they came back, I was gone. And when they opened the door to my room, someone else opened it for them. The screaming started right away, but it was too late. My name is Selena, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me, because this isn't a story about survival. It's about what happens when the one you left behind learns how to stand again. And this time, I wasn't standing for anyone but myself. My dad has always said the same thing about me. Selena's the strong one. She'll bounce back. It sounded like a compliment when I was younger. At 6, when I broke my arm and didn't cry. At 10, when I stayed home sick with the flu, so my parents could take my brother to his robotics camp. At 14, when they left me with an old neighbor during Christmas because flights were too expensive for 4. I was always the one who'd understand. The one who didn't need things. The one who knew better. My little brother, Noah, got new shoes every semester. I got hand-me-downs. He got cake and balloons. We'll celebrate next week. He got space to mess up. I got silence when I succeeded. You're independent, Selena. That's a good thing, Dad said once. And for years I believed him. Even after I paid my own way through community college. Even after I started covering my own medical bills at 19. Even after I skipped my senior prom to babysit Noah when they forgot he had school off. Every time I wanted to speak up, I told myself they're doing their best. But that ICU visit? That broke the last excuse. They didn't forget me. They abandoned me. Because it was cheaper. Dad signed me out of hospital while I was still leaking blood from my chest and couldn't walk to the bathroom, just to save on a few days' worth of hospital charges. 3 days later, they were sipping cocktails in the Maldives. Not once had they checked on me. No calls. No messages. Not even a bottle of water left behind. I would have starved if it weren't for my neighbor, Jen. A 60-year-old widow who heard me groaning through the wall and brought soup, clean towels, and painkillers. She sat beside me while I vomited into a bucket and whispered, "This is not what love looks like, sweetheart." I nodded, but deep down I didn't fully believe it until I saw the vacation photos. They took Noah. They took champagne. They took peace and left me with fever and torn stitches. And when they came back, they didn't call. They didn't knock. They didn't ask if I was home. They unlocked the front door of the house they thought was still theirs, because technically the lease was under my dad's name, and barged right in with new shopping bags and a $1,000 suitcase rolling behind them. But they didn't find me on the couch. They found a woman in scrubs holding a clipboard. She looked them in the eye and said, "Can I help you?" They screamed, "Mom first, then Dad." Noah stood frozen in the doorway, holding his pool float. But the woman didn't flinch. She smiled. "Oh, you must be the guests. Selena told us to expect a reaction." And that's when it really began. The woman at the door didn't even flinch when my mom started yelling, "Where is Selena? Why are you in our house?" She stood calmly, clipboard in hand, in full nurse scrubs. "This isn't your house. I'm the new tenant." My dad pushed past her, red-faced. "That's impossible. This lease is in my name." She nodded. It was until last month. They turned to the living room and froze. All the furniture was different. Neutral, minimalist. No family photos, no mismatched couches. None of the old stuff they'd left behind when they flew out for their luxury escape. Their voices cracked over each other in disbelief. "Where's the blue sofa? Who moved the mirror? What happened to our things?" The tenant, her name was Rochelle, gestured to the hallway. Everything was removed. Legally, with signed authorization. My dad pulled out his phone, pacing. "I'll call Selena. She doesn't have the right to do this. I'm taking this to court." But he couldn't call me, because I'd blocked him, and the number he was calling had long since been shut off. He turned to Rochelle again. "Who gave you permission to live here?" She smiled. "Selena Carter, the sole leaseholder." That's when they started unraveling. He stormed toward the back hallway, tried to push past her, but she stepped in front of him. "Sir, you don't live here, and if you attempt to enter the private quarters, I'll be forced to call security." "This is my house," he barked. But it wasn't. When he signed my discharge papers to get me out of the hospital early, he inadvertently gave me full legal freedom. I wasn't a dependent anymore. I wasn't a minor. I was free, and I acted fast. While they were clinking glasses in the Maldives, I had gone to the leasing office, updated all paperwork, and, with the help of a small payout from the hospital after I filed a grievance, paid off the next 3 months in full. The landlord had no objections. After all, I was an adult. The original lease had expired, and I was listed as a co-resident. When Dad didn't renew, I did. And the first thing I did with that power? I sublet it to a tenant I met through a nurse at the clinic I was recovering in. I moved out quietly, took what I needed, and left the rest behind. I stayed with Jen, my neighbor, while I healed. She gave me her guest room and a soft place to land. She fed me soup, let me cry, and reminded me that kindness wasn't supposed to be a reward. It was a basic human offering. Meanwhile, my parents returned to a home that no longer welcomed them. And the worst part? There was nothing they could do about it. Because for once, The girl they left behind had already moved on. I didn't leave in anger. I left in silence, because I knew by then that my pain didn't matter to them unless it inconvenienced them. So I gave them none. No tears, no warnings, no dramatic goodbyes, just space and consequences. For days after the discharge, I called the hospital board and asked to file a grievance. Not an emotional rant, a formal report. I was discharged from the ICU against medical advice, I told the administrator calmly, while still unable to walk, sit upright, or control my pain. I have documentation, photos, and the nurse's incident notes. I believe my life was endangered by someone else's decision. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. You're the patient who was released on February 12th. Yes, we'll be launching an internal review immediately. And they did. I sent the screenshots of Dad's text. You're coming home today. No discussion. I sent the insurance form he filled out, scribbled in his barely legible scrawl, opting out of continued care. It was the first time I realized how much power he'd had over me, and how quickly he'd weaponized it to save a few dollars. The same week, I called my bank and asked to remove all joint accounts I had opened 1 year ago with my father listed just in case. I closed it. I opened a new one, locked with two-factor authentication and a password no one else knew. I changed my credit card, changed my online passwords, checked my name wasn't tied to anything but my own records. Then I called my phone carrier and removed the family plan. A slow erasure, quiet, precise. Every click was a step away from them. Then came the apartment. I moved out quietly. Jen helped me box what little I had. My books, my clothes, my laptop. I left behind the rest. The clutter, the memories, the guilt. While my family was posting pictures of beach hammocks and dinner cruises, I was signing the lease renewal and calling in Rochelle, the nurse I met through a recovery support group. She needed a place close to the hospital. I needed someone who wouldn't flinch when my parents came knocking. We both got what we needed. The best part? They never saw it coming. They returned home expecting to walk into their old life. Furniture in place, daughter on the couch, everything frozen in time. But I wasn't frozen anymore. I had melted the illusion of loyalty they'd lived inside. I had stepped off the stage they forced me to perform on. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just walked off and took everything that mattered with me. My dad tried to regain control, of course. Angry voicemails, threats, legal bluffing. But it didn't work, because I'd already learned something he never wanted me to know. Freedom doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just locked doors and unanswered calls. And I wasn't just gone. I was finally free. It started with the usual, damage control. My dad called my aunt and uncle first, then my grandmother, then the pastor from our childhood church. Selena's just angry. She's been emotional since the accident. She misunderstood everything. We never abandoned her. We just needed a break. She told the hospital she was fine. Why else would they discharge her? Each sentence twisted just enough to sound reasonable, especially to people who didn't know the full story. And for a moment, it worked. A few relatives sent me cautious texts. He says you signed the release too? Was it just a misunderstanding? Your dad's heartbroken. He said you cut everyone off. I stared at those messages with the same numb disbelief I'd felt when I saw their vacation photos from the ICU. So I did what I should have done months earlier. I told the truth. Not in rage. Not with vengeance. Just with proof. I started with a post. No drama. Just the facts. On February 12th, I was discharged from the ICU after a major car accident. I had multiple broken ribs, a concussion, and torn internal stitches. I was still on painkillers. I could not walk without assistance. I did not ask to leave. My father signed the forms against medical advice to save money. Then I added the photos. My bruised face, swollen and bandaged. The release form. The nurse's written note. Discharge against medical recommendation. Guardian insisted. And finally, a screenshot of my family on vacation 3 days later. Cocktails, palm trees, matching outfits. I didn't add a caption. Didn't need one. The truth was loud enough. Within an hour, the post had 200 shares. By the end of the day, it had thousands. People from all over commented with rage, support, and stories of their own. This is unforgivable. You didn't overreact, you survived. Families like this break people. I'm so glad you left. You're not dramatic. You're brave. My DMs filled with kindness I never expected. Even people from my old church reached out. We always thought your dad was controlling. We just didn't know how much. My mom deleted her Facebook by the next morning. My dad set his profile to private. And my cousin texted me, "What the hell? Your dad's been lying to everyone." But the part that hit hardest? Noah. He messaged me 2 days later. "Noah, Selena, did all that really happen?" Me, yes. "Noah, they told me you were mad at us for no reason. But I saw the hospital pictures." Then, "Noah, I'm sorry I didn't check on you." I stared at his message for a long time. I didn't blame him. He was just a kid, dragged along in their fantasy. But even he could see the truth now. My father hadn't just lost control. He'd lost his mask. And I hadn't shouted to tear it off. I just told the truth. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I was never truly seen. My recovery wasn't instant. My body still ached. My sleep was uneven. Some nights I'd wake up gasping, heart pounding, convinced I was still trapped in that hospital bed, tubes in my arms, no one beside me. But healing came, slowly, gently. Jen's spare bedroom became more than a safe space. It became my restart button. She treated me like someone who mattered. Not because I did anything for her, just because I existed. That was new. She taught me how to sit in silence and not apologize for it. She let me cry without asking questions. She listened without interrupting. It was in that quiet that I began to rebuild, not just my life, but my sense of self. I applied for a remote job at a design firm in Portland. A small role, data admin and content editing. They hired me the following week. It wasn't flashy, but it gave me income. Independence. Structure. A chance to choose who I wanted to become now that I wasn't orbiting someone else's demands. Eventually, I found a place of my own. A one-bedroom apartment, tiny kitchen, mismatched floors, a window that caught just enough morning light to keep my new plant alive. But it was mine. No one could take it. No one had keys but me. No one could show up uninvited or demand I sacrifice comfort for someone else's illusion of control. There were no staged photos, no faux family moments, but there was peace, and it was priceless. Meanwhile, silence from my end spoke louder than any confrontation ever could. At first, they tried the guilt route. Emails, voicemails. Mom even sent a package with a card that said, "Family fights, but we forgive. Come home." Home? They left me on a couch post-ICU and flew to paradise. That wasn't home. That was captivity with better curtains. Then came the flip. Anger disguised as concern. "You've made your point. It's gone on long enough. We all make mistakes, Selena, but you're tearing this family apart." That line made me laugh. Tearing the family apart? I wasn't the one who left my daughter in a medical gown to recover alone. I wasn't the one who lied to every relative and hoped she'd stay silent. I wasn't the one who only noticed someone's value once they stopped being useful. I never replied, and slowly I watched the energy shift. They stopped asking me to come back. They started asking others to fill the gaps, cousins, extended family, even Noah. But it never worked, because what they wanted was the version of me who stayed quiet, showed up, and cleaned up every mess. And that version, she was gone. All that was left was me. Fully, finally, and for the first time, enough. It came at 6:12 p.m. on a Thursday. A message from a number I deleted long ago, but still recognized by heart. "Dad, we miss you. Can we talk?" 7 words. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a request. Like I'd disappeared over a mood swing. Like I hadn't bled in silence. Like I hadn't been thrown out of my own recovery to save them money and spare them inconvenience. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me waited for the follow-up message. Something softer. Something human. But that was it. "No, I'm sorry we left you." "No, You didn't deserve what happened. Just we miss you. Just can we talk? It made me wonder, what do they miss? Do they miss me? Or do they miss who I was before I said enough? Do they miss the daughter who paid her own bills so they could cover Noah's tuition? Do they miss the backup plan who smiled through birthdays they forgot? Do they miss the girl who forgave everything because at least they're still here? Because that girl? She's gone. I walked to my bookshelf, pulled down a folder. Inside, my new lease, my updated ID, my job contract, and at the very back, my hospital file, stamped in red, discharged against medical advice. I'd kept it for months, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. That one form taught me more about my worth than 20 years in their house ever did. I walked to my desk, sat down at the window where the sunlight spilled across the room. Then I took a photo, me smiling calm, the lease in one hand, the hospital folder in the other. No tears, no makeup, no filter, just proof. Proof that I was still here, still standing, without them. I attached the photo and typed one line. Your silence cost you everything. I'm not coming back. I hit send. Then I blocked the number, not out of spite, out of peace. Later that night, I sat with Jen and showed her the message. She didn't say much, just nodded once, slow and proud. You didn't need them to say sorry, she said. You needed to know you could live without it. She was right. For years, I believed healing had to come with their permission. That closure meant reconciliation. That peace required a mutual understanding. But it didn't. Sometimes peace looks like a locked door, a quiet evening, and knowing you never needed their love to define your worth. My dad never replied, but I knew he saw the message. The read receipt glared back at me for hours before I blocked it. And I smiled not because I won, but because I'd finally walked away before I bled out trying to prove I was enough. They missed me when I was gone, but they never saw me when I was right there trying. And now, they'd never get that chance again. The apartment is small, but every inch of it is mine. There's a chipped mug by the windowsill, a blanket that still smells faintly like lavender, and a journal open on the table with half-written thoughts in soft pencil. No chaos, no noise, just the quiet hum of the fridge and the sound of me breathing without fear. It's been almost a year since the ICU. 10 months since I left without warning. 3 since the last message. And somehow, without the drama, without the shouting, the silence finally feels like home. This morning, I woke up without pain. Not just physical. The other kind. The kind that lived in my chest for years. The ache that came with always being second to someone else's comfort. That familiar sting of pretending I'm fine while drowning. It's not that I don't think about it. I do. I remember the beeping machines. The nurse's gentle hand. The silence when I realized no one was coming back. But now those memories float by like passing clouds, visible but no longer storming through me. Today I wrote in my journal. I used to beg for love in small ways, through chores, through silence, through obedience. Now I love myself loudly, by resting, by choosing, by walking away. I closed the book. No need to write more. I've made new friends. Started a small book club, picked up freelance work designing covers for authors who, like me, are still learning how to tell their own story. I drink coffee slow, walk to the park sometimes without music. Let myself be proud of the quiet victories. There's no revenge left in me, not because they didn't deserve it, but because I don't want to carry their weight anymore. They were the fire, but I was the match that walked away before burning. Jen still checks in, though she's traveling more now. She sends postcards, always handwritten. You saved yourself. That's the story I'll tell when people ask what courage looks like. I keep those cards on my fridge. No family photos, no holiday cards, just the quiet proof that love can find you, even if it doesn't look like the family you were born into. I haven't heard from my parents since the last message, and I'm okay with that. No more wondering what they're thinking. No more hoping they'll see what they did. No more need to convince them that I mattered. Because I do. Not because they say so. Because I lived. Because I healed. Because I built a life without their approval. I light a candle near the window and sit with my thoughts. I don't cry. I just breathe and smile and let go. Not because they ask for forgiveness, but because I no longer need their apology to move forward. They abandoned me when I couldn't walk. And now that I stand tall, they'll never stand beside me again. Nothing extravagant. Just a backyard setup with string lights, homemade food, a Spotify playlist I spent 2 hours curating. I even baked the cake myself. Chocolate with raspberry buttercream. My favorite. I sent invites 3 weeks in advance. Mom said she'd check her schedule. Ava, my sister, left it on read. Dad didn't reply at all, but I figured they'd show. I was always the one who remembered their birthdays, who sent flowers, who booked restaurants and wrote heartfelt cards. Surely they'd come. By 7 p.m., the candles on the table had melted to stumps. By 8 o'clock, the guacamole had turned gray. By 9 o'clock, I turned off the music and packed everything into Tupperware. No one came. Not one text. Not one excuse. Not one single call to say, I'm sorry. 5 days later, I got a group text from my mom. We're organizing Dad's 60th. A week in the Keys. $2,800 per person. Venmo me. No hello. No happy birthday I missed. No acknowledgement that they had ignored me entirely. Just a bill. I stared at the message for a long time, the words blurry from the rage tightening in my chest. And then I did the only thing that felt right. I sent her $2 with a note, congratulations. Then I went to the door, changed the locks, and blocked every number in my phone tied to blood. 3 days later, Ava tried to access the joint emergency fund, the one I had contributed to month after month. Well, they called me selfish and said I never really pitched in. Blocked. And just when I thought they'd finally leave me alone, the police showed up at my door. Ma'am, we received a report that you've been missing. Family said they're concerned for your safety. My name is Delilah Quinn, and from wherever you're watching this video, stay with me. Because when the people who never show up for you start screaming when you disappear, it's not because they care. It's because you took the oxygen they were quietly stealing and learned to breathe without them. When I was 8, my sister Ava got a brand new bike for her birthday. Pink, with a sparkly seat and white tassels on the handlebars. She didn't even ask for it. Just woke up to it on the porch, shiny and perfect. That same year, I got a second-hand set of colored pencils for mine. Half of them already used, most of them broken. Mom smiled when I opened them. You're the creative one, she said. Ava's more into sports. And that was the beginning. Ava was celebrated. I was functional. She got praise, attention, extra dessert. I got told I was so mature for my age, which in our house was just code for we expect you to understand things that hurt. By high school, Ava was skipping classes and hosting sleepovers that left the kitchen trashed. I was holding straight as and washing dishes without being asked. When she crashed Dad's car, they blamed the rain. When I missed curfew by 10 minutes because of a late bus, I was grounded for a week. Still, I kept showing up. Every holiday, every family dinner, every birthday, armed with gifts and patience and just enough hope that maybe this time they'd treat me like I mattered. Instead, I got used to hearing the same phrases on loop. Don't take it personally. She's just going through a phase. You'll understand someday. But someday never came. At 28, I loaned Ava $5,000 to get her through a rough patch. I never saw it again. At 31, I took care of Mom after her surgery. Changed bandages, cleaned the house, handled insurance paperwork. Ava came by once, for 20 minutes, left with a selfie and a story to tell her friends about how emotionally draining caregiving is. Still, they thanked her first in the group text. And me? You've always been the reliable one. Like that was love. When I planned my 35th birthday party, I knew better than to expect anything extravagant. But I thought maybe they'd show up. Turns out, I was still waiting to be seen by people who had made an art out of pretending I wasn't standing right in front of them. That night, after no one came, I sat on my porch staring at the flickering candles, and the only thing I could think was, how many more years will I waste hoping this time is different? I didn't know it yet, but I had already asked my last question of them. The next one would come in the form of silence, and that would be my first real answer. The day after I sent my mom $2 with the message, "Congratulations," I sat on my living room floor and opened every single drawer they'd ever had a key to, metaphorically and literally. The front door? Lock changed. The spare key I'd hidden under the flower pot for emergencies? Tossed. The shared streaming account that they used but never contributed to? Cancelled. The family group chat that only pinged me when someone needed help moving, borrowing money, or crying about their drama? I left it without a word. I went down the list and blocked every single number tied to my bloodline. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. It wasn't about deleting people. It was about removing access to me. My peace, my time, my energy. Things they had taken freely without ever asking if I had enough for myself. That day, I opened my freezer and stared at the leftover birthday cake I had wrapped in foil. Still untouched. I took a bite. Cold. Sweet. Dense with sugar and a quiet kind of grief. Then I threw it in the trash. There was no ceremony. No sad music playing in the background. Just the sound of a plastic lid closing. Final. After that, I logged into the joint emergency savings account. The one they'd all agreed was for family stuff, but which in reality meant I deposited $250 every month while Ava pulled money out for spontaneous spa trips and Dad used it to pay for his fantasy football bets. I had funded 90% of it. I froze it. I didn't drain it. I didn't steal. I just made it so no one could touch it, not without me present. 3 days later, Ava tried to withdraw $800. Declined. That was when the text started. First from her. "Hey, I think something's wrong with the bank." Then from Mom. "Did you change something with the joint account?" Then again from Ava, this time more direct. "Why are you being petty? It's not that deep." I stared at that last message for a long time. Not that deep? They hadn't shown up to my birthday. Hadn't texted, called, or acknowledged me. Had sent me a bill instead of sorry. But I was the petty one. I didn't reply. That was the day I turned my phone off for good. I told my clients they could reach me by email only. I logged out of social media. Deleted my photos from our shared iCloud folder. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Because the truth was I hadn't disappeared. I just finally stopped giving them a front row seat to the life they never clapped for. And that silence, it wasn't passive. It was power. Ava tried calling 6 times in one day. I didn't answer. She left one voicemail, her voice sweet and fake and just tight enough to let me know she was angry, but trying to sound concerned. "Hey, Del, just checking in. Not sure what's going on with the joint account, but I'm assuming it's a glitch. Let's talk soon, okay?" I didn't call back. I didn't explain. Because here's what they never understood. I was never asking for attention. I was asking for respect. And when you stop giving people your labor, your money, your energy, your emotional first aid kit, they don't grieve the relationship. They grieve the loss of your usefulness. I saw it play out like a movie. First confusion, then concern, then irritation, then full-blown meltdown. By the end of the week, my mom had emailed me. "We're family. We don't freeze each other out like this." I almost laughed. They didn't freeze me out? They skipped my 35th birthday like it was nothing. Sent me a bill 5 days later. Didn't send one message to ask if I was okay. But now that the ATM was offline, now we're family? I left the email unanswered. And that's when they did the most dramatic thing of all. They filed a missing person report. It's almost impressive, in a way, the leap they made from "you're dramatic" to "you've disappeared." 3 days after I blocked everyone, 2 uniformed officers showed up at my door. I opened it in pajamas, holding a cup of tea. "Ms. Quinn, we received a report from your family that you might be missing. They said you've been unreachable, and they're worried." I blinked. "I'm not missing," I said. "I just stopped answering people who hurt me." They looked at each other, like they weren't sure what to do with that. I invited them in. Showed them the birthday photos, candles lit, food untouched. Showed them the text asking for $2,800. The blocked calls. The Venmo message. The receipts. One of the officers actually sighed. "Honestly, seems like they just didn't like you going no contact." I nodded. They apologized for the inconvenience and left. And that night, I posted a photo of myself, hair wrapped in a towel, book in my lap, mug in hand. Caption, not missing, just unavailable. No names, no drama, no hashtags. But I know they saw it, because silence may be invisible, but its weight, it's unforgettable. After the police left, I sat in complete silence. Not the awkward kind, not the kind that makes your skin itch with loneliness. This silence felt earned, like peace that had been waiting its turn for years. The officers had left with their little notepad and polite nods. They hadn't treated me like a threat, just another adult who decided to set boundaries, which, imagine that, is not a crime. Still, I couldn't shake the absurdity. They reported me missing. No calls on my birthday. No knock on my door the day after. But the second I stopped being useful, I was suddenly lost. It wasn't concern. It was control dressed up in panic. The only thing missing was their ability to reach me, and that I was not returning. That same night, Ava posted on her Instagram story, not directly about me, but I know shade when I see it. Some people disappear and think it makes them mysterious, but mostly it makes them selfish. A beach selfie followed. Caption, #family first. Funny how the people who preach family first are always the ones who think that means you come last. I didn't reply, didn't screenshot, didn't even care, because I had my own version of reality, and for the first time, I wasn't editing it for someone else's comfort. Instead, I went to therapy. I started with 1 session a week, then 2. I unpacked things I hadn't said aloud in years. How I always felt like a guest in my own family, how being good meant being quiet, how Ava could ruin a birthday and still be the one they bought a gift for. My therapist looked at me after one particularly hard session and said, "You weren't difficult. You were just honest in a family that preferred denial." That sentence stayed with me. I started writing it on sticky notes and putting them on my fridge, my mirror, my laptop. It became my anthem. I wasn't missing. I was done. Done begging for crumbs. Done interpreting silence as something I had to fix. Done playing the reliable daughter while they took until I disappeared into the background. And here's the best part. The more they panicked, the calmer I became. Because I realized the only thing they missed was the version of me they could guilt into staying. Now that she was gone, they had nothing left to manipulate. Just their own echo. Without me, they started slipping. Quietly, then all at once. I didn't see it firsthand, of course. I wasn't there, but word got around. People talk, especially when the person they used to lean on suddenly goes silent. It started with Ava. She tried to book the $2,800 birthday trip without consulting anyone. My mother assumed I'd be contributing as always. When I didn't, they were short. Hotels got downgraded. The surprise yacht dinner became a lakeside rental with boxed wine and plastic cutlery. The cracks were subtle at first. Small jabs, muttered complaints. But I wasn't there to mediate. And that's when the blaming started. Ava accused Mom of managing everything poorly. Mom snapped back, said Ava was just like her father. Dad, the quiet coward he always was, walked out halfway through dinner and didn't return till midnight. I heard all this from a distant cousin who called me out of nowhere. "Delilah, are you okay? It's a mess over here without you." That one sentence did something I didn't expect. It didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel seen. Because all those years I was called dramatic, selfish, overreactive. The truth was, I'd been holding the whole damn house together with quiet sacrifices. And now that I'd stopped, the weight fell exactly where it belonged. They tried to act like I was invisible, replaceable. But when the glue disappears, things don't bend. They break. Meanwhile, I started breathing again. Real breathing. Deep in the lungs, into the belly, no tightness in my chest kind of breathing. I went to therapy twice a week. Started writing again. Took long walks at sunset. Phone on Do Not Disturb, not because I was avoiding anyone, but because no one left was worth answering. I launched a small design business for my guest room. Named it after a phrase my grandmother used to say, "Build soft, live loud." Clients started pouring in. Reviews were kind. Payments came on time. And best of all, no one in my inbox was asking me to fix a family mess I didn't make. I laughed more. I slept deeper. I remembered what my actual laugh sounded like, not the one I used to soften the room, the one I weaponized to keep peace. This one was real, and for the first time in my life, I didn't owe anyone an explanation for my joy. I wasn't missing from their world. They had just never imagined a version of me where I stopped asking for scraps and started building banquets. I was still here, still alive, still thriving, just no longer available to hold up a collapsing house I didn't set on fire. It was a Wednesday night when I wrote the letter. No dramatic music playing. No thunderstorm in the background. Just me, barefoot in sweatpants, glass of wine on the table, and an ache in my chest I hadn't fully named yet. I didn't plan to write it. It just came out like a purge, like something waiting behind my ribs for too long. The first line was simple. This is everything I never said out loud. Then came the flood. I wrote about the birthday party no one showed up for, about sitting at that table alone while the candles burned down and the cake went untouched, about waiting, still waiting for someone to text, "I'm sorry." I wrote about Ava, how I used to envy her, not for the attention, but for how easily love was given to her, how she never had to ask for softness, how even when she hurt people, someone swept in to protect her. Meanwhile, I was the one sweeping. I wrote about my mom, how her silence always cut louder than words, how her coldness trained me to think that withholding affection was normal, that love had to be earned by being useful. I wrote about my dad, how he watched all of it and said nothing, and how silence from a father feels like being erased in slow motion. And then I wrote about myself, the version of me they thought they knew, the strong one, the quiet one, the one who never needed anything, the one who handled it. And how all that strength they praised, it was survival, not choice. I told them I forgave them, but not for them, for me. Because forgiveness, I've learned, isn't letting someone off the hook. It's realizing you don't have to carry the weight anymore. When I finished, the letter was 5 pages long, my handwriting a little shaky, the ink smudged in a few places. I folded it, didn't read it back, didn't proofread, didn't pause to decide if it made sense. Then I walked outside to backyard, lit a small fire in the pit, and dropped the pages in one by one. They curled at the corners, blackened, disappeared into ash. I watched every word burn. And the strange thing? I didn't cry. Not once. I just felt lighter. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't closure in the dramatic, shouted in their face kind of way. It was release. The kind of peace that only comes when you stop trying to get people to understand you, and instead, understand yourself. I finished my wine in silence, went back inside, brushed my teeth, slept with no dreams. That letter? They never got it, and they never needed to, because it wasn't for them. It was for the girl inside me who sat through 100 dinners where no one looked her in the eye. The girl who spent years wondering, what did I do wrong? The girl who finally knew. She wasn't broken. She was just surrounded by people who benefited from her silence, until she stopped being quiet. The morning of my 36th birthday, I woke up to the smell of cinnamon and coffee. Sunlight poured through the sheer curtains, warm and gold. In the kitchen, laughter bounced off the walls. My best friend, Mariah, was humming some old Whitney Houston track while making French toast. There were tulips in a vase I didn't remember placing there. It was soft, quiet, real, and it was mine, not a grand hotel, not a $2,800 island trip with fake smiles and matching polo shirts. Just joy that didn't need a price tag. At the table were people who showed up, not for optics, not for obligation, but because they loved me in the steady, sacred way I used to beg for from my family. Mariah, my coworker Jenna, and her wife. Isaac, my neighbor, who brought a bottle of wine and a loaf of banana bread with happy birthday carved into the top in chocolate chips. We ate, passed plates, made dumb jokes, and nobody checked their phone mid-conversation. At one point, someone said, "Delilah, you've got the calmest energy I've ever felt." And I smiled, because calm didn't used to be my story. I used to be tension wrapped in skin. The fixer, the good daughter, the second option. I used to wake up every birthday, wondering if they'd remember. If maybe this year, the cake wouldn't feel like an apology for something I didn't do. Now, I didn't wonder anymore, because I wasn't waiting for anyone to see me. I saw myself. After brunch, I curled up by the window with my journal. Not to vent, not to explain, just to remember. I wrote one sentence at the top of the page. They thought I disappeared, but really I just stopped showing up for people who never showed up for me. That wasn't bitterness. It wasn't even sadness. It was truth. And truth is heavier than grief, but it holds you more honestly. They had told the world I was missing, painted me as unwell, unstable, distant. But I wasn't missing. I was unavailable to manipulation, to guilt, to being used up like a spare battery in the junk drawer. What they missed wasn't me. It was the version of me that absorbed their chaos, paid the bills they forgot, showed up to parties I wasn't invited to, and clapped for people who never clapped back. They missed their free labor. They missed their scapegoat. They missed the glue. But me? I didn't miss them. Because what I've learned is that peace isn't something you earn by being small enough to fit into other people's comfort zones. Peace is something you claim and protect and build walls around when necessary. That night, I lit one candle for myself. No cake, no singing, just me on my balcony under the stars, wrapped in a blanket of my own making. And as I watched the flame flicker, I whispered to no one, "Happy birthday, Delilah. You made it. Not just to 36, but to the other side,